Alright, all you insomniatic TV channel surfers out there tonight, welcome back to the Tuesday Night Special. And for you YouTube fans out there, don't worry, I didn't forget the Indie Radio Arcade, Music Village, and I do believe Under the Radar will all be uploaded before the end of this week. We've just been behind with a little bit of the flu behind the scenes, but we're back, recovering, and ready to deliver you guys the entertainment you so rightfully deserve. And speaking of entertainment, folks, I think it's time for us to go into another edition of As Seen on TV. And the program we have up for this week is probably one of my favorite shows to mark that we reached 47 episodes for it. None other than James Bond Jr. Yes! You don't know how excited I am to review this show, folks, because the meat and potatoes of this said show is that the nephew of legendary secret agent 007, James Bond Jr., that goes under the moniker of 003.5, which I find hilarious, all while going to the university known as Warfield Academy, will try to fight the bad guys that not only James Bond had to fight, but also a new set crop of villains from the group called Scum that tries to take him out every single episode, but fails every single time. And the reason why I love this show so much is because it came on just around the same time as Muppet Babies and had me to believe for the longest amount of time that this show was inspired thanks to Muppet Babies. Which, if it was, to this day, thank you, Muppet Babies, for actually starting the launch pad for all the kid-themed shows that we most likely will review for the first couple of weeks of the new year. You know, that's a little bit of a spoiler alert for you fans out there. But besides that, the fact that James Bond Jr. rides in the Aston Martin DB5, the classic vehicle that James Bond owned, it was one of the real reasons I love this show besides the theme song. And by the way, folks, first episode out, and we might as well get to one of my favorite episodes of this show. The first episode for this show, not only he shows that the vehicle can fly, but he pulls off a beautiful 360, and they scratch that 720 spin into a parking lot perfectly like Ace Ventura. Like what, Maestro? Like a glove. Which I was surprised as a kid to see this, and I was so awestruck because I was already a big 007 fan as it was. But to see a show like this, to have a kid version of James Bond going around taking out the bad guys that James Bond would, and even taking on villains such as not only the Scum Lord, but also somebody known as Knick-Knack, along with Jaws, who made an appearance during this show, and another villain that went by the name of, I think, Headgear? I keep getting his name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Headgear during this show, and even was able to take on Goldie Finger, the daughter of Goldfinger, during the said series. So that lets you know how deep this series goes, folks. The children of the bad guys who fought against James Bond are fighting against Bond in this show. And if you think that he doesn't have a Q of his own, you're wrong. Because the person that he has as Q goes by the name of Horace I.Q. Boothward III, which is the grandson of the legendary Q during the said series. And not to mention, he goes by the name of IQ during the show. And a couple of the cool inventions he came out with, besides the laser watch that his grandfather came out with, is a pen that shoots a miniature rocket out of it that actually helped James Bond Jr. get an apple in the first episode. Nice! And another reason why I love this show so much, besides all of the spy technology and everything else they put into it, folks, the fact of the voice actors during this show. because the man who played James Bond Jr. and also played the leader of Scum, the Scum Lord, known as Corey Burton, also played Ludwig von Drake and Captain Hook during all of the Disney projects they had for the animated series. Then you would see him play Brainiac for the DC universe, then move along to the Star Wars universe where he would play Count Dooku and Cad Bane, then move on to Transformers where he would play Shockwave, and even in the video game universe where this guy would play Hugo Strange in Arkham City and Zeus in God of War. And then look at the person who played IQ, Jeff Bennett. He would also play the dad in Dexter's Laboratory, Petrie in The Land Before Time, the animated series, and even Kowalski during the Penguins of Madagascar TV series. And to wrap up the actors who played during this show, because there were a lot of them that did a lot of cool things, you also have Mona Marshall, who played just about every single girl character in South Park and would also play in the Fraggle Rock animated series, which I had no idea existed until this very moment. And out of all of the bad guys that James Bond fought, or should I say James Bond Jr. fought during this series, Maestro wants to know who was my most favorite villain that he had to go up against. Well, if I had to pick one, it has to be between Dr. Derange and a little bit of Skullcap. And thank you for the correction earlier, Maestro. That was one of my favorite ones because it reminded me of Lockjaw from one of the TV shows I watched as a kid. I can't remember the name of it, but it definitely reminds me of Lockjaw, which was a cool guy to me in my opinion. And also reminds me of that other robot that followed around Rosie in the series of the Jetsons, especially with that metal cap. Yeah. And I always used to call him the bootleg version of Jaws because he had that metal skull cap on his head, and I would always make fun of him when he came on the TV saying, "Oh, not this Jaws knockoff, go away, go away." And a little inside information for you fans out there, this show actually debuted on September 30th of 1991, but unfortunately would not last that long on TV because it would only last until March 2nd of 1992. Now, besides the fact of this show being so short, folks, it would also be featured during a Nintendo game in the near future called James Bond Jr., and would also be turned into a comic series spanning well over 12 comics. But in my opinion, if there was one show that I wish they would bring back to TV, since they're doing it all the time nowadays, this would definitely be one of them, and would have some form of backstory about how he became James Bond Jr., and to continue the series on almost like they did with the whole thing with Iron Man, when they made Iron Man's kid become the new Iron Man along with the kid of Pepper as well. Because Nickelodeon did that before, and I do believe they can do it again. And seeing the fact that we don't know how to review shows along the lines of TV Guide or any of those other shows that you would see on TV that review shows, we say this. If you want to watch a classic spy spin-off of the classic James Bond series brought to a kid's world, where a teenager who magically got a driver's license and the ability to take out bad guys but not kill them on screen, and still manages to get the girl while looking cool at a moment's notice, then I recommend you go out there, pick up your TV channel remotes, and watch that flick. And I do believe that somebody that goes by the name of Mayhem93, and I could be wrong with that name, has the complete series on YouTube as we speak for James Bond Jr. So go ahead and check it out. And I guess with that said, folks, we might as well head back into this music, and when we return, we'll be back with more Tuesday Night Special than you can shake a streetlight at right after this. So don't go watching infomercials just yet, folks, and stay tuned.
have dialed is not in service at this time.